closer look at the numbers when it comes to these ICE raids, both nationally and locally, Dan.
And we need to explain this because of the transition of Trump from Biden to Trump, and because of the transition of really aggressively going after this. We are having a problem getting hold of Department of Homeland Security investigations. They're who run these ICE arrests. We're talking about Immigration Customs Enforcement is what ICE stands for. We do know that they did put out on social media nationally that there were 956 ICE arrests. My job as a journalist is to say, well, then how many of those were in Ohio? How many were in Northeast Ohio? We are asking our regional office. The unfortunate part, our regional office is in Detroit. The Homeland Security Investigation Office in Detroit runs both Michigan and Ohio. We do know that they too got on social media and said that there were violator arrests this weekend in both states. Now, what we can do next is that we know the Geauga County Safety Center is one of two facilities in the state that can house illegals who are arrested, people who are arrested that are in the country illegally. They got state and federal money to build this safety center, and that they confirmed, the sheriff in Geauga County confirmed that they took in 20 this weekend. Now, as far as the rest of the state, where are these 20 from? We're not being given those details. This is, again, at the federal level, makes it even harder for us to get some answers. Now, coming up at 4 o'clock, there were some major arrests nationally that they are touting, like this man from Haiti who was a street criminal in Haiti and has been convicted 17 times in the United States. They picked him up. He is apparently going to be deported back to Haiti. We'll have details on his and a couple of other high-profile arrests from the weekend coming up at 4. Nikki?